A shocking crime you won't believe, and the truth is even darker than you think. Stay tuned, and don't forget to subscribe for more mind-blowing stories. Let's dive in. Imagine a world where life-saving organs, kidneys, livers, hearts, are not gifts of hope, but commodities traded in the shadows. A world where the line between life and death is drawn not by fate, but by money. This is not a dystopian fiction. This is the chilling reality of the black market for human organs. Tonight, we take you deep into the underbelly of this illicit trade, a trade fueled by desperation, greed, and the darkest corners of human nature. What you're about to hear is not for the faint of heart, but by the end of this hour, you'll understand why this story must be told. This is the shocking black market for human organs, exposed. It began on a cold, rainy night in October 2018. In a small, impoverished town in Moldova, a 24-year-old man named Viktor Petrov left his apartment to meet a friend. He never returned. Viktor was a construction worker, struggling to make ends meet in a country where opportunities were scarce and corruption was rampant. His family described him as kind, hardworking, and deeply loyal. But in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, Viktor had been acting strangely. He'd mentioned a big opportunity, a chance to make enough money to change his life. His mother, Irina, recalled the last conversation she had with him. He said, "Mama, this is it. This is our way out." I begged him to tell me more, but he just smiled and said, "Trust me." When Viktor didn't come home that night, Irina knew something was wrong. She called his friends, his co-workers, even the local bars. No one had seen him. The police initially dismissed it as a case of a young man chasing dreams. "He'll turn up," they said. But Irina knew better. Her son would never abandon his family. Days turned into weeks. Then a break in the case. A farmer, tending to his fields on the outskirts of town, stumbled upon something horrifying. Hidden among the tall grass was a shallow grave. Inside was a body, but this was no ordinary crime scene. The body had been surgically mutilated. Organs were missing. Viktor Petrov had become a victim of the black market for human organs. But how and why? To answer these questions, we must follow the trail of blood and money that leads to the heart of this sinister trade. The investigation began with Viktor's phone. Police recovered from his apartment and discovered a series of cryptic text messages. The last one, sent just hours before his disappearance, read, "Meet me at the old factory. Bring your ID. This is it." The old factory was a crumbling relic of Moldova's Soviet past, long abandoned and shrouded in rumors of illegal activity. When police searched the site, they found evidence of a recent struggle, a pool of dried blood, a discarded syringe, and a single surgical glove. But the most chilling discovery was yet to come. Hidden in a corner of the factory was a makeshift operating room. The walls were stained with blood. The floor was littered with medical waste. And on a table, covered in a tarp, was a set of surgical instruments. It was clear that Viktor had been lured to this place under false pretenses. But who had brought him here? And what had they done to him? The answer lay in the dark web. Using Viktor's phone, investigators traced his online activity to a forum dedicated to medical tourism. The posts were coded, but the meaning was clear. This was a marketplace for human organs. One user, going by the handle The Broker, had been particularly active. His posts promised life-changing opportunities for those in need of money. The language was vague, but the implications were horrifying. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a network of similar cases. Young, healthy individuals who had vanished under mysterious circumstances, only to turn up dead, their bodies stripped of organs. The pattern was clear. These were not random crimes. They were part of a highly organized global operation. But who was behind it? And how far did it go? To understand the full scope of this horror, we must follow the trail to its source. A trail that leads to the shadowy figure known only as the Broker. This is where our story takes a darker turn. Because the Broker was not just a middleman. He was a master manipulator, a predator who preyed on the vulnerable. And his network extended far beyond the borders of Moldova. But before we meet the Broker, we must first understand the world he operates in. A world where desperation meets greed. A world where life is cheap and death is profitable. This is the black market for human organs, and it is more terrifying than you can imagine. The investigation into Viktor's death led authorities to a man known only as the broker, a shadowy figure who operated in the darkest corners of the internet. The broker was a middleman between desperate patients and willing or unwilling donors. Using encrypted messaging apps and cryptocurrency, the broker arranged deals worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. A kidney could fetch $200,000. A liver, $500,000. Hearts? Those were priceless. But who was the broker? And how did he lure people like Viktor into his deadly web? Undercover agents infiltrated his network, posing as wealthy clients in need of organs. What they discovered was a chilling operation that spanned continents. The broker preyed on the vulnerable, the poor, the desperate, the hopeless. He promised them life-changing sums of money. But the price was far higher than they realized. One undercover agent managed to arrange a meeting with the broker in a dimly lit cafe in Istanbul. The man who showed up was unassuming, average height, average build. But his eyes, they were cold, dead. The agent recorded the conversation. The broker spoke casually about his trade, as if discussing the weather. Supply and demand, he said. People need organs. I provide them. Simple as that. But there was nothing simple about it. Behind his calm demeanor was a monster who saw human beings as nothing more than spare parts. The broker's operation was vast. He had connections in hospitals, morgues, and even government agencies. He could procure organs within hours, no questions asked. But his most chilling revelation was this. The donors, they're disposable. There's always more where they came from. The undercover agent pressed for more information. How do you find them? He asked. The broker smiled. They find me, he said. Desperation is a powerful motivator. And he was right. In countries like Moldova, where poverty and corruption were rampant, the broker had no shortage of willing or unwilling donors. But his network extended far beyond Eastern Europe. He had clients in the Middle East, Asia, and even the United States. Wealthy individuals who could afford to bypass the legal organ transplant system. The broker's clients included CEOs, politicians, and celebrities. People who would do anything to extend their lives, no matter the cost. But as the investigation deepened, a disturbing pattern emerged. Many of the broker's donors were not willing participants. They were coerced, kidnapped, or outright murdered. One case in particular stood out. A young woman from the Philippines, Maria Santos, had been promised a job as a nanny in Saudi Arabia. But when she arrived, she was drugged and taken to a clandestine clinic. Maria woke up days later, her body stitched and bandaged. She had no memory of what had happened, but the scars told the story. Her kidney had been stolen. Maria's case was not unique. Investigators uncovered dozens of similar stories. Men and women lured with promises of work or money, only to be stripped of their organs and left for dead. But the broker was always one step ahead. He operated through layers of intermediaries, making it nearly impossible to trace the organs back to him. That is, until one mistake. In 2019, a shipment of organs was intercepted at Istanbul airport. The labels on the containers were falsified, but the contents were unmistakable. Human kidneys, packed in ice, destined for a private clinic in Dubai. The authorities traced the shipment back to a warehouse in Istanbul. Inside, they found a fully equipped operating room, complete with surgical instruments and anesthesia equipment. But the most damning evidence was a ledger, a detailed record of every organ sold, every donor used, and every client served. The broker's empire was beginning to crumble, but capturing him would prove to be the greatest challenge of all, because the broker was not just a criminal. He was a master of disguise, a man who could vanish into thin air, and he was always watching. This is where our story takes its darkest turn, because the broker was not just a man. He was a symbol of a world where life is a commodity and death is a business. But even monsters can be brought to justice, or so we thought. To understand the full scope of this horror, we must meet the donors, not the willing ones, those who sell a kidney to pay off debts or feed their families. No, we're talking about the unwilling, The victims. In Viktor's case, investigators believe he was lured with the promise of quick cash. He was told he'd be donating a kidney. But once he was sedated, the surgeons took more. Much more. Viktor's story is not unique. In countries like India, Pakistan, and the Philippines, poverty-stricken individuals are coerced or outright kidnapped for their organs. Some wake up in bathtubs filled with ice, their bodies stitched haphazardly. Others never wake up at all. But the black market doesn't stop at the living. In some cases, organs are harvested from the dead. Morgues and funeral homes have been implicated in this gruesome trade. Families bury their loved ones, unaware that their organs have been stolen and sold. The demand is insatiable. Every year, thousands of people die waiting for transplants. For some, the black market is the only option. But at what cost? One of the most harrowing cases came to light in 2017, when a man in India woke up in a hospital with a fresh scar on his abdomen. He had no memory of how he got there, but the doctors told him he had undergone emergency surgery to remove his kidney. The man, Rajesh Kumar, had been kidnapped by a gang specializing in organ theft. They drugged him, performed the surgery in a makeshift clinic, and left him on the side of the road. Rajesh's story is just one of thousands. In India alone, it's estimated that over 2,000 people fall victim to organ theft each year. But the problem is not confined to developing countries. In the United States, a scandal erupted in 2015 when it was revealed that a funeral home in New York had been harvesting organs from corpses without consent. The organs were sold to research facilities and pharmaceutical companies, fetching thousands of dollars each. The black market for human organs is a global crisis. It preys on the vulnerable, exploits the desperate, and violates the sanctity of life. But who are the people behind this trade? The surgeons who perform these gruesome operations? The brokers who arrange the deals? The clients who fuel the demand? To answer these questions, we must delve deeper into the heart of darkness. This is where our story takes its most shocking turn, because the black market for human organs is not just a crime. It's a reflection of our deepest fears and darkest desires. And it's happening right now. At the heart of this trade are the surgeons, skilled, respected professionals who swear an oath to do no harm. But in the black market, that oath is broken. These surgeons operate in clandestine clinics, often hidden in plain sight, a warehouse in Bangkok, a villa in Costa Rica, a private hospital in Istanbul. They work quickly, efficiently. Time is money. Anesthesia is minimal. Sterilization, optional. One former black market surgeon, who spoke on condition of anonymity, described the process. You don't think about the person on the table. You think about the money, the power, the thrill of getting away with it. But not all surgeons are willing participants. Some are coerced, threatened, their families targeted if they refuse to cooperate. The line between healer and killer becomes blurred. And the victims? They are nothing more than collateral damage. One of the most notorious cases involved Dr. Ahmed Khan, a respected transplant surgeon in Pakistan. Dr. Khan was arrested in 2016 after it was discovered that he had performed over 200 illegal organ transplants. His clients included wealthy foreigners who traveled to Pakistan specifically for the procedures. But the donors were often poor locals, lured with promises of money they never received. Dr. Khan's clinic was a nightmare. The operating rooms were filthy, the equipment was outdated, and the donors were treated like cattle. But Dr. Khan was just one piece of the puzzle. The black market for human organs is a hydra. Cut off one head, and two more grow in its place. Today, the trade continues. In the shadows, in the silence, Viktor Petrov's family never got justice. His organs were never recovered, but his story serves as a warning. A reminder that in the darkest corners of the world, humanity's worst instincts thrive. The black market for human organs is not just a crime. It's a betrayal of everything it means to be human. And it's happening right now. In 2020, after a 2-year international investigation, the man known as the broker was finally arrested. His real name? Dr. Emil Kovac, a respected transplant surgeon who had once saved lives. Now, he was charged with destroying them. The trial of Dr. Kovac was a media sensation. It was held in a secure courtroom in The Hague, with Interpol and Europol overseeing the proceedings. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Encrypted messages, financial records, and the testimony of survivors who had escaped his clutches. But the most damning evidence came from the ledger, the detailed record of every organ sold, every donor used, and every client served. It was a map of his empire, a sprawling network of death and profit that spanned the globe. The ledger revealed the scale of the broker's operation. Over 200 victims, millions of dollars in profit, and a network of accomplices that included surgeons, hospital administrators, and even government officials. But here's the shocking twist. Dr. Kovac was just one piece of the puzzle. The black market for human organs is a hydra, cut off one head, and two more grow in its place. During the trial, Dr. Kovac remained eerily calm. He showed no remorse, no emotion. When asked why he did it, he simply said, "Because I could." But as the trial progressed, a darker truth emerged. Dr. Kovac was not just a criminal. He was a visionary, a man who saw the future of medicine and decided to profit from it. He spoke of a world where organs could be harvested on demand, where the wealthy could live forever, and where the poor were nothing more than spare parts. A world where science and greed collided to create a new kind of horror. And he was not alone. The trial revealed that Dr. Kovac had been working with a shadowy organization known as the Consortium, a group of wealthy elite scientists and criminals who saw the black market for organs as the future of medicine. The Consortium's goal was simple: to create a global network of organ harvesting and distribution, a network that would operate outside the law, beyond the reach of governments and regulators. And they were succeeding. One of the most shocking revelations came from a whistleblower, a former member of the Consortium who agreed to testify in exchange for immunity. His testimony painted a picture of a world where life was a commodity and death was a business. He spoke of secret clinics hidden in luxury resorts, where wealthy clients could undergo transplants in complete privacy, of underground labs where scientists experimented with cloning and genetic engineering to create designer organs, and of a global network of brokers, surgeons, and enforcers who ensured that the trade continued no matter the cost. But the most chilling revelation was this: the Consortium had infiltrated the legal organ transplant system. They had agents in hospitals, government agencies, and even the World Health Organization. Their goal? To undermine the legal system, to create a world where the black market was the only option. The trial of Dr. Kovac lasted 6 months. In the end, he was found guilty on all counts: murder, trafficking, and crimes against humanity. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But the victory was bittersweet, because while Dr. Kovac was behind bars, the Consortium was still out there, still operating, still growing. And the victims? Their stories were far from over. One of those victims was Maria Santos, the young woman from the Philippines whose kidney had been stolen. After her ordeal, Maria became an advocate for victims of organ trafficking. She traveled the world, sharing her story and demanding justice. But in 2021, Maria disappeared. Her body was found weeks later in a remote area of the Philippines. She had been murdered, her organs once again stolen. Maria's death was a grim reminder that the black market for human organs is not just a crime. It's a war against the vulnerable, the poor, and the powerless. And it's a war that is far from over. Today, the black market for human organs is bigger than ever. It's estimated that over 10,000 illegal transplants are performed every year, and the demand is only growing. In China, rumors persist of state-sanctioned organ harvesting from political prisoners. In India, gangs continue to prey on the poor, luring them with promises of money they will never see. And in the United States, the rise of medical tourism has created a new market for illegal organs. But perhaps the most disturbing trend is the rise of organ tourism. Wealthy individuals from developed countries are traveling to developing nations to undergo illegal transplants. They pay tens of thousands of dollars for organs harvested from the poor and vulnerable. And the worst part? Many of these individuals see nothing wrong with what they're doing. They justify it as a matter of survival, a matter of life and death. But what about the rest of us? What can we do to stop this horror? The answer is simple: awareness. The black market for human organs thrives in the shadows. It thrives on ignorance and apathy. By shining a light on this issue, we can expose the criminals who profit from it. We can demand accountability from the governments and institutions that turn a blind eye, and we can support the victims, the survivors, and the advocates who are fighting to end this trade. But we must act quickly, because every day that we wait, more lives are lost, more families are destroyed, and more bodies are stripped of their humanity. The story of Viktor Petrov, Maria Santos, and Dr. Emil Kovac is not just a story of crime. It's a story of greed, of power, and of the darkest corners of human nature. It's a story that reminds us of the value of life, of the sanctity of the human body, and of the lengths that some will go to in order to profit from it. But it's also a story of hope, because for every Dr. Kovac, there are countless others who are fighting to end this trade, who are working to create a world where organs are gifts, not commodities, a world where life is sacred and death is not for sale. This has been the shocking black market for human organs, exposed. Thank you for listening. If this story has moved you, share it. Spread the word, because the only way to fight the darkness is to shine a light on it. And remember, the fight is far from over, but together we can make a difference. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more crazy crime stories, make sure to hit that like button. Drop a comment below with your thoughts. What crime shocked you the most? Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. More insane stories are coming your way. Follow us for more on your social media handles, if any. And check out our next video here. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.